and welcome to Arcadian. I am very happy that you're here, because it means that you don't know how to play Dungeons & Dragons, but you want to learn. And just like that, this hobby that I love so much is that close to gaining a new player, possibly one day a new DM. And you are on your way to experience and live through what I believe is one of the most complete and rewarding experiences in the world, at least when it comes to games and creative activities in general. But that's only if I do my job right, so no pressure. Today we are going to learn how to play Dungeons & Dragons. So, you're here to learn how to play Dungeons & Dragons. Let me tell you what no YouTuber should say to their audience, but yet again, I'm no real YouTuber. You don't need to watch this video. Seriously, if you want to play the game, the most organic way to learn is by playing. I wasn't alive at the time, but the bodiless voices of the internet say that when this game came around, people would learn simply by being invited into other people's game tables at hobby shops and stuff, and slowly learning their way around. Some even played for years with the wrong rules because they had secondhand knowledge on how the game worked until they finally read the book. So, the easiest way for you to actually learn is to start playing, to find yourself a D&D group who already knows how to play, either online or in your friendly local game shop, and start playing as well. You will learn a lot simply by watching the other people play, and if you get a good DM, they will walk you through the basics of the game as you play it. Kinda like nowadays when you play a video game and you learn it by playing an in-game tutorial instead of reading the actual manual. If finding a veteran group to take you in is difficult or outright impossible, you could always try to watch D&D streams, but I'd recommend for the hands-on experience. The hardest parts to master when you are still new to the game are just character creation and maybe combat, but those will become more natural as you gain experience, and I'll also talk about those in a bit. For now, I'd just like you to be aware that you don't need this video or any video to start playing, so don't trust anyone who tells you otherwise. I'm not encouraging you to shoot first and ask questions later, to be unpolite or to assume that the other players at the table have the obligation to teach you how to play, but if you find yourself a nice table, people will help you naturally, and you'll be playing without learning wheels in no time. So if you feel like starting, just go ahead right now, spread your wings and do it, try it. Now, for those of you who didn't take my very counterproductive advice and are still here, I assume that is because you're looking for some compact quick start guide to the game before you actually start playing, or you just like to hear me talk. Not sure why anyone would like that, but sure, let us begin then. When you play D&D, you and a group of friends gather around a table and you play through an adventure, which is orchestrated by one of the players, who accepts the role of the Dungeon Master, or DM for short, and basically acts both as the eyes and the ears of the players, kind of like the interface between the world of the game and them, and also as the judge of all the rules, even those which aren't specified in the book and the DM must improvise on their own. This adventure can last for only one session of gaming, which, when we're talking about D&D, takes about 3 to 4 hours in average, but it may vary. Or it can be a part of a larger, epic, multi-session adventure, which we call a campaign. And that's the good stuff. Normally, you create a completely original character for you to play as, although for your first time playing, you might also be interested in asking the DM for a pre-generated character, or getting one yourself, just so you can jump right into the action and start playing without having to spend time learning all the rules of character creation. That you can learn later, if your first game hooks you in and you want more. And it's fun creating new characters, so it's very likely that if you get interested in D&D, you will feel motivated to learn by yourself how to create characters. Regardless, when you're playing the game, what you're expected to do is simply play as the character that you created. You define their species, their class, their backstory, and their personality. Now, you act as if you were this made-up person you invented, staying true to their ideals, their personality traits, and even their flaws. Kind of like if you were interpreting a hero from a comic book or a movie or a video game. And you do whatever the hell you want. Normally there is an adventure or almost a plot that you're encouraged to follow, or at least an objective that you want to achieve in the game or in the adventure you're playing, but there is no roadmap in D&D. For example, you might know that your mission is to slay the red dragon that's threatening the kingdom's borders, but how you do it or how you tackle the problem, that is completely up to you. You can barge into its lair action hero style and fight to the death. You can try to sneak into his cave and assassinate him while he sleeps. You can try to reason with him and propose a deal so he drops the attacks. Or you can even join him and start conquering the nearby lands under the name of the Dragon Rider or something. That is the kind of narrative freedom that makes D&D and RPGs in general so cool. Be aware that there are also other players at the table, and there is an unspoken agreement not to do anything that might annoy or ruin the other player's fun, but other than that, you are your own master, and your character doesn't have to follow any predetermined path. You only need to act as your character and live through the adventure. And when I say you're expected to act as this character you invented, I mean act as in managing their actions, deciding what they do, everything they say, every choice they make in battle, literally anything that is reasonably within that character's possibilities. But some players really do act, as in actual acting. They speak in character, they use funny voices sometimes, they interact with other players and the NPCs by addressing them directly without breaking character. And this can be a lot of fun and contribute to a bigger feeling of immersion. But rest assured, if that intimidates you in any way, that's completely optional and you can totally play the game without it. You might be thinking now, okay, that sounds cool as hell, but you didn't tell us how to play yet. Except I kinda did. You acting as your character, or in other words, you saying out loud what your character does, that is the basic foundation of how the game works. All action in D&D follows a simple 3-act structure like this. First, the DM describes what is happening in the world, what the player's characters are seeing, what is being told to them, or whatever. Then, the players respond by telling the DM what their characters do in that circumstance. Finally, it is up to the DM to consider what the characters did and what effects and consequences that had, so the DM responds by narrating the consequences of the player's actions. This description also serves for the first act of a new cycle, so the players will be free to act in response to that as well, and so on, so on. That's how the game works, that simple. Here's the fun part. Because the DM is a human capable of improvisation, your character can try anything they like, and the DM will simply have to ponder what would happen then, what would be the natural course of action. Some of your actions will automatically succeed. For example, if the DM describes a bush rustling and your character wants to pull the leaves away to see what's behind the greenery, the DM might just tell you outright what your character discovers. It's right there for anyone to see, no challenge. Some other actions will likely fail automatically as well, like if you tell your DM that your character wants to fly without having any ability that allows them to fly, yeah, you're probably not going to be able to fly. But what about events with uncertain outcomes? What if your character wants to try and sneak between the shadows to infiltrate the royal ball? Or try to hit a target that's really far away in the village archery competition? Or deceive a guard into letting you inside the devil's prison? That's where this bad boy comes in. This is a d20, meaning a 20-sided die. You will need at least one to play D&D, and it is meant to be used to solve actions with uncertain outcomes. What happens is simple. Whatever you're trying to do, the DM defines a number to translate the difficulty of that action, the DC, or difficulty class. Then, you must roll the d20 and match the DC or roll higher to succeed. It's that simple. Lower DCs are easier to overcome, and higher DCs are more difficult because you need to roll higher. Normally, you can even get bonuses you can add to your roll. After you create your character, you will notice that it will have 6 different abilities: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Each of them is supposed to represent a group of attributes of your character, and the higher they are, the higher the bonus they give you. For example, your DM requires you to roll the d20 to climb a boulder, but since this is a very physical, strength-based task, they specifically ask you for a strength test, or, like we say in D&D, a strength check. This means that you get to roll your d20 as you would do, but also add your strength bonus to your roll. So imagine the DC is 15, and you roll 14 on the die. But your strength bonus, or as we nerds call it, the strength modifier, is a +3. So you still make the roll, because in total, you actually rolled 17. Better yet, Depending on your background, your character might even be specially trained in a specific skill, a subdivision of the original 6 abilities. For example, since they had to lie to survive, the thief could be exceptionally trained in deception, a specialized use of your charisma ability. And the paladin could be extra knowledgeable in religion, a subdivision of intelligence, because they had to study a lot of religion all their lives. When you're specially trained, or as the game puts it, when you are proficient in a certain skill, you also get a special bonus you add on top of your ability modifier, which is called the proficiency bonus. This one doesn't get bigger the higher your ability scores are, but rather grows with you as you level up. For new players, it can be challenging to understand where all these numbers come from, ability scores, modifiers, proficiency bonuses, but that's why it's generally easier to get a pre-generated character for your first game. It already has all the numbers in place, you just need to locate them next to the name of the test you're attempting, or better yet, you can get help from an experienced player, so they walk you through character creation faster, and you have everything prepared for you before the game. And it's still custom made. But if you prefer it that way, I can tell you more about how to determine these numbers by yourself in my How to Make a D&D Character video. Look for it in the eye or down below in the Underdark. Notice how you don't need to know a lot of rules to play D&D. You basically only need to tell the DM what you want to do, and then it's up to the DM to tell you what happens or what you have to roll in order to try it. That's one of the biggest misconceptions about starting to play in D&D, and why I encourage you so much to simply start playing, because the game is simply about telling the DM and the other players what your character wants to do. And it's the DM who will tell you how to resolve that. In the end, the way you play D&D really isn't that much different from a conversation or an improv storytelling exercise. There are rules in D&D for a lot of very specific things, such as underwater combat, mounts, chases, carrying capacity, even though no one really cares about that one. But the point is, most of the times the knowledge of those rules will fall onto the DM. They will be the ones to tell you whenever a specific rule comes into play, and when that means for you. You don't need to memorize the whole book. The only thing you are kinda expected to know perfectly is your character, meaning their features, their skills, their special powers, because the DM is only human, and it's not possible, nor polite, to expect them to know everything about D&D. Knowing the rules is hard enough, but other than that, if every player can take care of their own character, you can rely on the DM for pretty much all the other things. In D&D, there's also combat, which still follows that 3-act structure of the DM describes what's happening, you tell them what you want to do, and they describe the consequences of your actions. However, there's a little bit more rules in here because it's turn-based, you are slightly more limited in terms of what you can do, and there's a whole plethora of skills that can come into play. So instead of squeezing the rules for D&D combat in like 2 minutes, I'm going to leave that for the next video, which you can find right afterwards or down below in the Underdark. But the main message I wanted to leave you is that D&D isn't that much complicated, at least in your first session. Then, as you get more interested, you can complicate it on your own initiative, on your own terms, by expanding the knowledge you have on the game and therefore expanding your arsenal of possibilities. I think that even for long-time players, D&D is only as complicated as you want it to be. And it's not that difficult to start playing, so if you're curious about it, give it a shot. And please tell me down below if you have any questions regarding the basic rules of D&D. I will do my best to answer them if that gets you playing. I was trying to keep the video short enough and very entry level, so there's a lot of things that I left out. If you have any questions, please ask away. And that's it, guys. I'm the first Arcadian, I'm a Portuguese dungeon master, and I make videos about D&D and content like monsters and magic items and supplement rules and even campaigns all the time. So if you like this video, you know the drill, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon, share the video with your D&D groups, you know, all the stuff that I hate talking about because it makes me feel like I'm being annoying. But if you help this channel grow and it gets something big, you'll have bragging rights over everyone else to say you were one of the OGs. Think about that. I'm also an artist and a comic book author, so I often share stuff like fantasy character art and battle maps. I'll drop links to my social media so you can see what kind of D&D doodles I've been drawing recently. Other than that, we do need to learn how combat works in D&D. So I hope to see you in the next video.